Hey, we're off to a great start this morning. Welcome to Morning in the Valley. I am Jeff Bidwell. Glad you are with us today, wherever you are listening to us, Facebook, X, YouTube. Glad you're with us. Coming up, we're going to talk with the voice of the Southern Illinois Salukis. He is Luke Martin, as SIU Athletic Director Tim Leonard announcing last week Salukis will be opting in. I don't know this was a huge, shocking decision, but officially official. The Salukis will be opting into the House settlement, which will allow for revenue sharing and the such. So we'll talk with Luke about that decision, how the Saluki fan base is reacting to that decision, and more on the SIU basketball side of things. We'll talk with him coming up here in about 10 minutes. We're also going to talk with coming up on Wednesday, just looking ahead, we'll be talking with Kate Popovic-Goss, the head coach of the Bradley women's program. We'll talk with her coming up here in just a few days. We're off to a little rocky start here this morning. Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, we'll talk with Kate Popovic-Goss. If you haven't done so already, please head over to YouTube and subscribe to us there. Just search out Morning in the Valley and subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff as we continue to grow this fine little program. Today, anything but fine. So far, we're trying to get the train back on the tracks here, and we appreciate you being with us. Quick headline of the day, as Luke Martin is already here. I appreciate the punctuality, but we're going to let him get set as we start our headlines of the morning. Last night, 103-91. The Oklahoma City Thunder, your NBA champions, they beat the Indiana Pacers. Ben Shepherd, the former Belmont Bruin, had 4 rebounds last night in that loss. The story of the game, though, really, Tyrese Halliburton injuring his Achilles, maybe a tear. Don't know about that yet, but another Achilles injury. And we have just reached a point now in the NBA that I think we have reached the breaking point with Achilles injuries, and the league's got to do something about it. And I think we have now seen, in this, just going back and doing, 10 seconds of Google research, in the regular season, Indiana's Isaiah Jackson out for the year with an Achilles. New Orleans' DeJounte Murray tears his Achilles out for the year. Miami's Drew Smith out for the year. And then just in the playoffs, in the first round against the Pacers, the Bucks' Dame Lillard went down with an Achilles. Jason Tatum, of course, in the second round for the Celtics went down. And then last night, you've got Halliburton, and he's now done. If it is a tear, he's probably missing all of next season too. And so you saw this in the NFL. I think it was about 2008 when Tom Brady got sacked in the first game of the year, and a defender went low, and he missed the year with a torn ACL. And the NFL stepped in and was like, you can't even look at a quarterback's knees anymore, let alone hit anybody below the waist, because quarterbacks are the most valuable asset in that game. And in the NBA, where there are so few players overall, but there are stars and there are superstars. And when you have, your mileage may vary on Tyrese Halliburton, but as a star or a superstar, he's in that conversation. Tatum is certainly a superstar. Dame Lillard was a superstar, on the back end of his career. But these are assets that you cannot lose for a year. And it is all the same injury. And right now you're seeing in the NBA where you're seeing calf strains. And calf strains just seem to be the precursor to the Achilles tear. And guys want to play. It's just a calf strain. I'll play through it. And then bang, the Achilles pops and you're out for a year. And you just can't have it. You can't have it. It has not trickled down to the college game, thankfully. And whether this is, there's too many games, whether the court conditions need to be better, whether there's, not enough recovery, maybe the recovery's not right, medical timeline, maybe it's just bad luck. But the league has got to spend some time. We've seen this in the women's college game where, there was a run where it just felt like women's ACLs, they was just kind of an epidemic with ACLs. And I don't know that it's really curbed. Maybe just the conversation may have shifted elsewhere, but we've got this is, once is an accident, twice is a trend, 3 times we got a situation. We have a situation in the NBA that's going to have to be remedied, because this is problematic. Because again, it's not just, hey, I rolled an ankle and I'm out for the game. You've blown an Achilles, you're out for a year. And when you come back, pretty good chance you're not at 100% of what you were when you first got hurt. And that is just from a league standpoint, these guys are just such high priced assets. You've got to protect those assets. And this has got to change sooner than later. All right. We're going to get into the rest of the headlines of the day coming up here in a little bit. But right now, we're going to bring in our man. He is Luke Martin, the voice of the Southern Illinois Salukis. Sir, I saw you openly grieving last night loss, which, look, you lose at game 7, you're upset. Obviously, the Halliburton injury is a big deal. I also saw you raging earlier in the day about the umpire show we saw in Omaha with Coastal Carolina's skipper there getting tossed in the first inning. From an emotional standpoint, it was quite a Sunday for Luke Martin. Which one sort of rocked your boat the most? The rage, the game 7 shattering you went through later in the night?
They both did. There's no question about that. We're not going to debate which one was more or not, even though I know that was your question, Jeff. But, of course, on the daily, you know how much, I followed Saluki baseball throughout the year. So ump shows can somewhat irk me a little bit more probably because it's more my daily routine and what I'm around. But it was, reminding me seeing the Pacers. I compared this when I was on a show a while back of when, the Colts finally broke through with Peyton Manning, of getting to the Super Bowl and being able to win one and what that meant to the state. And I was very young when Reggie Miller and the Pacers last made the NBA Finals. And I don't live in Indiana, obviously, anymore, but my family's still in Indiana. And it was just really cool to see the state get behind the team, just have a miraculous playoff run. And it just kind of in typical, Indiana fans think they are cursed in many ways around some just dramatic injuries. But you just would have loved to see, even if you went down swinging last night, to be completely healthy instead of now Pacer fans, regardless of, it's going to be one of the biggest what ifs. Hopefully it's one when you get down the line, you get back there and you have a chance to win it. But obviously Pacer fans have not been used to being on this stage more times than not.
Yeah. And when you don't get to your point, when you miss out on a chance, you're right at the doorstep, and then you don't have all the proverbial bullets in the gun, that stinks. But then when the best bullet in the gun, you don't know when he's coming back. That's a whole other grieving process that you get to go through for the entire summer and the fall. All right, Saluki basketball. You got a chance as I was driving to Omaha now a week and a half ago, and for whatever reason, you got top billing there at the North Dakota State radio folks. I had to sit in the bullpen waiting for you to get done with all your time. But you're very close to the vest, a company man. I appreciated that. They were pressing you on the house settlement. And you're like, well, the boss has some stuff to say. I'm going to let him say it. And you got to sit down with Tim Leonard last week and kind of went through everything. And like I said, I don't know that I was surprised in the end, the decision and the outward declaration that, yes, we are opting into the settlement and so on. From your overall conversation with him, what was kind of your grand takeaway with Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, and I was really appreciate that Tim gave us the time, because I think there's definitely a big knowledge piece to this and a learning piece to it for, I still think there are a lot of fans that haven't grasped NIL in general still, even though NIL has been a clear part of our daily routine, Jeff, and what we understand it because we cover teams and we're with the teams on the road and know that's been a part, especially in the Missouri Valley the last 2 years. NIL has continued to become a bigger and bigger thing as we go along, and it's only going to continue to become bigger. But it's more of what I was hoping to get out of it, and I think we did get out of it, was the why. And, what is the reason? Everyone's hearing this opt in, opt out. I even had a lot of fans ask me, hey, so if we opt in, why would we opt in? Because that means you have that back pay with this new NCAA house settlement. Well, regardless of where you opt in or opt out of the rev share, which Southern's opting into the rev share, if you opt out, you are still owing that back pay. So when people hear opt in, opt out, trying to join the settlement, if you opt out, that doesn't mean you are not in charge or have any responsibility in terms of payment for the back pay that was settled through this NCAA versus house settlement. So regardless of which of those paths you take, you're going to have to owe the back pay, which that was kind of one of the things that I learned through this process as well. And then, of course, the opt-in, opt-out, the biggest thing is the roster sizes.
Right.
And, when you look at schools like SIU, and a lot of it comes down to, at least where Tim used the example with me, was where you look at the Pioneer League for football as an example. There are Pioneer League teams. When we say Pioneer League, for those that maybe aren't familiar with FCS, that is non-scholarship football. It's a non-scholarship football league, which of course the majority of those schools, those guys are paying money obviously to go there, and their roster sizes are way above what would be the roster size of 105. So for schools like those, which Valpo within the Missouri Valley Conference is within the Pioneer Football League, Butler as well, does it make sense to opt in and cut your football roster from a number that you typically keep above the 105 for very obvious reasons to try to get some income in the school, or would you go down? So those things were definitely good to find out through my interview with Tim, but also there was a major talking point in our interview of concern of, all right, these are new rules. Who's going to hold all these schools to the new rules? This opens the door for possibly some more under the table payment when you're just trying to get out of that era of college athletics. So we are far, Jeff, from being in a situation where everything is solved. We now have a clear roadmap. There is a better roadmap for schools like SIU, like Murray State to follow. But it's anything but clear, Jeff. There are still going to be, I think, many conversations to be had and many learning sessions to be had to know exactly how this all will affect our schools.
It's not apples and apples in any way, but
Yeah.
your argument about the scholarship limits, I remember in the early days of COVID, and I still in my TV world talking to the athletic director at Tennessee Martin, and that was a time that you saw universities. It was almost COVID was a convenient excuse to let's shed some sports here that we don't want to. And he was like, look, this doesn't. He goes, I come at it from a completely different standpoint of how many sports we have. Everybody thinks basketball and football, but whether it's track and field or cross country or baseball, all these partial scholarship sports where these kids are paying their own way, to your point, it's like the university needs this revenue. So I understand sort of the hesitancy on some folks to go to go in when you have these football limits involved. From a general standpoint, I know there's still an education piece to this. I feel like, to your point, fan bases have finally, for the most part, gotten a grasp on NIL, and now the goalposts move again. How has the fan base, as much as you've been able to tell, sort of reacted to the, okay, we're in this opt-in, we're in this rev share world now?
I think fans are saying, okay, what else do we need to do? I think there's an understanding of, we do understand that, the easiness, and it also comes down to, look, it's just an easier way to pay your roster. And we all know, I know this is breaking news. We're breaking it here on the Maury in the Valley, which is what you love to do. There's not going to be a Valley school that even comes close to touching the $20.5 million in terms of sharing. I think everybody understands that. Now, the powers of our sport, of course, completely different, especially when you get in and you read just but there are schools in the Power Four in football alone that are spending up to that money, which is just staggering to me, and why we talked about the concerns of what it could do in terms of under the table payment. But back to your question, where our fan base is at. A lot of questions I'm getting is, okay, we understand it, but what more do we have to do? Is there, we understand we got to show up. And part of the rev share model, ticket revenue, all these things are now going to start going more towards our athletes. We understand that, hey, we need to start going to Banterra Center when they win. We need to start supporting the Salukis in that way. But what else? What more is there? And, Tim Leonard has talked at length of, he's not worried about figuring out the basketball piece. He has faith in Scott Nagy. He has faith in the roster and the staff that eventually they are going to win. And he wants to see that come to fruition this year. Is the school, is the university, is the athletic department ready to capitalize on that monetization at the end of it? When it is happening, can you capitalize on bringing in more revenue on the success you're having? And those are really a lot of conversations that I know SIU is having internally. I'm sure it's the same thing that a lot of athletic departments are having internally. It's the number one driver, Jeff. In this day and age, you need more revenue to pay your players, but you also need more revenue to stay alive. And that's where our schools are at right now in this new day and age. And that's what our fans are asking. They're just simply going, I think they are coming around and they understand, look, this is here to stay, and we're not going to play ostrich or stick our head in the sand and just ignore what's happening. They just, okay, can you just give us a little bit more? What's our plan? And we'll get behind you and we'll support you. And I think that's where a lot of that work right now for schools like SIU are going.
I probably spent too long on my soapbox, I guess, on Friday after your conversation with Tim Leonard, and the part that I pulled out that really hammered to me was, what do we need? We need you to go to games, and we need fans to come to games. And the part that I yes, 100%. Obviously, that is, we need folks. I said, my counter to that was, this is a two-way street of responsibility, in that, yes, fans need to come, but in an era where for $11.99 a month, I can watch every SIU sporting event I
Yep.
want from the comfort of my own home. That, yes, there is a responsibility, from the athletic programs, of, we need to put a good product on the field to make people want to come out and watch, but it's also an entertainment product. And the responsibility, I think, a big chunk of that pie has to fall on the athletic departments and their game management folks, and everything that happens around the play, the hour before the game, halftime, every media timeout. That it has to be like, when you leave, win or lose, you have to walk out and then go, man, this was a great show tonight. And I don't know, and I can't see the same show 15 times.
Yeah.
There has to be some difference to it, because ticket prices are not getting smaller,
No.
and they're going to go up. And I was like, and I just hope that schools understand that the staleness that people, you see it all over. That I'm like, I've been to this. I come to this school once a year, and I know I saw this show last year, and so I can't imagine what the fans are like when they're here every night. So I understand his ask, and I think it needs to be applauded. But I also think there's some shouldering, and you got to spend money to make money here. That I think there needs to be some investment in that part too.
Absolutely. And I think a really good school to look at, and everyone will look at the recent success that Purdue has had. And Purdue, for us, I grew up in Indiana, as I said, and our family were big Purdue games. I remember going to Mackey Arena early, before Coach Painter got there, and now that Coach Painter is there. It's an event. I mean, it is a true event to go into Mackey Arena and watch Purdue play today. If you go into Mackey, uh, it is hands down one of, if not the best environment in college basketball. And that's exactly to your point, Jeff. Whether, and a lot of it, yes, Purdue's winning. That always helps. But when you go to that arena and you can literally feel that energy, and you feel it throughout, whether it's the music, how you use your band, how you do lights within the arena, it is exactly as you said it. It is a show. And I know, with you bringing up entertainment, Rodney Watson on his mower right now in Evansville, probably listening to this, is smiling ear to ear, because he talks about that constantly now. That, look, you understand that you hire, whether it's Casey Alexander in Nashville, or Coach Miller at Murray, Coach Nagy here, Coach Graves in Terre Haute. Like, yes, you understand that their jobs are to win games, and their worry is basketball. But also, you're part of that entertainment business as well. And it's not just you're constructing a roster trying to say, okay, what's the best way that we can win? That's the obvious thing, and you got to stick to your core values. But you got to add to that environment. And part of adding to that environment, no question, is the winning side. But so many teams in our league, Jeff, have to take that cue, is what you said. Winning can solve a lot.
Yeah.
Just ask Drake
Right.
and what Drake has done within, and Brian Harden, who is their athletic director. I was at Ball State, my undergrad, when he was there, and I got to know Brian really well. And it's no surprise to me to see him having the success as an AD at Drake. Winning has been a part of it, but now they've invested in the Knapp Center. When you go to the Knapp Center, it is a completely different feel than what it was in 2016. Winning kind of gets more eyeballs on it, but you just can't say, okay, we're winning. No, you have to do more as an institution. And you're exactly right. It's not just spending money in the portal too. It's not just
Right.
spending money in your NIL. Yes, that's part of it. And leagues and teams in our league are doing that. But you also got to have that investment piece within your arena and your game day atmosphere.
It's
100% couldn't agree more.
it's just too easy not to go to games now. It's too. You're gonna have you have a certain. And I said this the other day. There are people that if you play that game at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday in an Applebee's parking lot, they're tailgating and they're ready to go. But it's like, well, it's a little windy. It's misting. It might rain in 3 days. I don't want to. I'm just sitting on my couch and I will watch it on ESPN Plus, which is this great service and everybody can watch everything. But at the same time, it kind of, it bites you in a way that it's like, well, especially again when I got to take a family of 4 and I know I'm going to spend $100. It's like, I can watch 8 games at home for $12. And so I just, you need to make people feel, and you got to make the basketball's great, but I want to be part of something. I want to be entertained. And I think that's just fallen short at too many places. And it's gotta, my plea to the world, entertain us, please, please. And Tim Leonard can stand out at center court when the Racers come to Carbondale, and he can stare at me from the dog at center court, and he can go, "Are you entertained?" And I can stand up and say, "Yes, you have done well, sir." And you have my word on that.
Well, not to throw ideas out to Murray State, but if they're looking for a guy who can do radio play-by-play and in-stadium MC during games, I think Jeff Bidwell can fit that bill.
I think I've got enough jobs already. Thank you. Thank you. You have been fired as my agent already. I've got enough going on. Just looking at, looking around the Valley now, and just look, we still the deadline got extended another week, June 30th is the time now. The public declarations at this point: SIU, Murray State, Bradley, Northern Iowa have all said we're in. Valpo and Indiana State have said we are out. And Drake, Bradley, Evansville, Illinois State are in the we don't know yet. I feel pretty safe that Drake and Bradley are yeses. Illinois State's going to be yes. And I'm probably, if I had to lean, I say Evansville's a no right now. This is really, as much as we talk about the high majors to the low major, or the high majors to the mid-major separation, this has really got a chance to create an mid-major separation right now of, hey, we've got, whatever the number is going to be. You said no 20 million. I mean, there's going to be schools spending $1 million. There might be schools that knock on the door $2 million in this conference this year. And then you're going to have schools that spend $0. It is going to be a challenge to be able to compete in this league.
Well, and just not even in this league, Jeff. I mean, obviously, we look at this from a basketball-centric show, and that's what's great about it, being Morning in the Valley and focusing on Missouri Valley Conference basketball on the men's and the women's side. But just look within the sport of basketball. Yeah. If the rules are held to what the rules are, which is the $20.5 million cap, there probably isn't a league that is smiling more than the Big East. When you think of schools and leagues that don't have football as a major, even within the Valley, Northern Iowa, Illinois State, Southern Illinois, the schools that are, of course, on the football side and the men's basketball side, you have football. And that no doubt has to factor in to your revenue stream in terms of what you're sharing. Now, I do think that the majority of the schools in our league that have that are still going to send the majority of their money towards their basketball program and not football, but you can't completely ignore football.
Right.
And that's what makes this conversation. And as you said, the haves and the have-nots, that's where you can see that disparity. And even take a league like the A10, for example. You look at history over time, the Valley's been right there with the A10. The top spender in the Valley would be at the bottom of the A10 in terms of NIL. Now, does that mean that no team out of the Missouri Valley Conference can beat a team in the A10? No, but what we're talking about is the overtime factor, Jeff, right? It's not necessarily in the here and now. It's if you spend that money at a higher level over time, eventually you think that gap is just going to, it may not be very big now, but in 2 years and 3 years and 4 years, theoretically it should, when you're spending that high of money on it. And even within our league, like, I think the top end of our league on what they spent on NIL a year ago would be at the bottom of our league this year. That's how drastic this thing is changing. And that's what, not to get on my soapbox with this NIL thing, Jeff, but it's what I don't like about it is the sort of unknown for our fans. I mean, there's this, everyone wants to say, hey, we want to invest in this. And then when you ask the question, what are you investing? Everybody runs. And I hope there is a day and age where that becomes more public. And not just because of just that I believe that it should be known. But look, man, we're very fortunate in our jobs and especially here at SIU, we get players win or loss post game, and we obviously get Coach Nagy does not stiff us; he comes whether win or loss as well. Uh, it's not the good old college try days anymore, Jeff. I mean, these guys are professional athletes,
Right.
and I think that how are you preparing them to be a professional when they leave? And that's not, hey, you just get to talk to Jeff and Kenny when it's all smiles and everybody wins. It's no. I mean, there's sometimes where you got to go and you got to talk after a tough night of work. And that's where I hope schools like SIU and the Missouri Valley Conference that it's not just, hey, you're throwing money at these guys that hopefully, that money can become knowledgeable. So at least every school knows where everyone's at. And it's not this, oh, this school's here. And then you're completely off base. Like, there has to be that knowledge base, but I don't know how many school administrators would agree to that. I think many are probably cringing as I bring that up. But it's the transparency factor where if you want your fans to be invested and to understand what all the needs are, I think there needs to be as much transparency as possible. That's my soapbox when it comes to that, Jeff. But I do believe at least we're going. That no doubt has to be, I think, front of mind for a lot of schools.
It is going to bite schools, and the goalposts are going to move again, and so this theory probably won't hold water in 2 years. But I feel like there is a chance that it's going to bite you on the front end, but in maybe 2 years, I think it's gone a little underreported in this House settlement, is that teams can now sign kids to multi-year deals with buyouts attached. And so when Kennard Davis goes, you know what? I signed a 2-year, but I'm going into the portal after 1. And BYU, is that where he went?
Yep.
Did he go to BYU? Okay.
Yep. BYU.
BYU signs him. Well, you know what? He's got $1 million price tag attached to him. Now, BYU might go, we're good. So, hey, maybe that lets him stay. Or we're going to pay that buyout. And now SIU has another $1 million to go play with. And that will suddenly, I mean, for some schools, that'll match their rev share. And you go from 1 to 2, or you go from 2 to 3 or whatever. And then, yes, you lose that player, but soon enough, the gap will close some. It's certainly not closing, but it gives you a fighting chance to kind of hang on to some of those guys a little bit more. And I think that can be a benefit. Now, when I say that 2 years down the line, Lord only knows where we're going to be with things, but I love the buyout component of it. And I hope teams are smart enough to go, and I know that's probably going to be a negotiation point when you sign these kids, but it's like, don't let North Carolina off the hook and be like, we'll put a $250,000 thing on it. They've got $20 million to spend. Make them spend some of that money on you to benefit your program.
I think that's really the only, I don't want to say it's the only way, Jeff, but when you look at this model, no doubt one of the major concerns that everybody has is it sustainable? And I think it's pretty clear for the majority of the schools, that answer is no. But if you start to get into this situation where, as you said, you start signing guys, how many sign 2-year deals, who knows?
Right.
I think Barry Hinson would be a tremendous guest for you at some point, because I know you've talked to Barry before in the past of his NIL component at Oklahoma State. And when we were at Oklahoma State this past year, we were chatting with him, and his mind on where it's going, I feel, is very sharp. And especially when it comes to collective bargaining. And Barry is in the trenches on that. And I think he's ahead of the game when it comes to it, because that's where ultimately I think we're going to get to is you're going to have contracts. There's going to be some sort of collective bargaining for these players where there's those rules, right? Where, hey, if you're going to be, Kansas or any of these bigger schools, yeah, I mean, you just can't come and just poach guys in all of a sudden Southern is left holding the bag, or Murray State for that example. But now if you start getting into that area, as it theoretically should, Jeff, as we're getting more in that area of the bigger schools have that money to pay. Now they're starting to give that money back to schools. That may be where you start to get more investors or whatever you call them within your school of, all right, I'm willing to give my money to help the school if I know maybe down the line, if this is a home run hit or whatever it is in our sport, that the school's going to get money back on that and possibly the reinvest, and that's where you get the cycle. Where right now it's like, why would I give my money? I'm not really going to get much ROI on it. That's what everybody wants to see in terms of their money. At least people who make a lot of money definitely value ROI in terms of
Yes.
return on investment.
I think we have beaten the house settlement into the turf here for 25 minutes. So I appreciate the time. Before I let you go, I know you're poke your head in as much as you can into practice. What are the early impressions of season 2.0 with Scott Nagy and the 25-26 Salukis?
I don't want it to be like I didn't expect it, but I'll be blunt and honest. I really didn't expect this part of it. This group really enjoys being around each other.
That's
And
helpful.
it is and I know fans want to hear, hey, what's the basketball side of it, the skill side of it? And I think it's clear when you come to a Saluki practice and you just watch, you could see there are better players, and as there should be. You should be better. The 6 guys who have come back to returners, I think pretty much, I'd say pretty safe that 5 of the 6 have no doubt been able to make strides this summer and are better versions of themselves than a year ago, which is what you want. I think all 6 are close. Just some guys have different summers and coming back in different roles. But what I have noticed in a very short amount of time, and look, it is summer, it is June, and
Of
this is
course.
what I try to tell everybody. It is a very small sample size. There is no adversity in the month of June.
Yep.
If you're going through a lot of adversity in June, that's probably not the best of signs. But what I can tell you, Jeff, point blank, this time a year ago, you could already see some energy vampires, and you could see guys or players on a team that are starting to be like, I could see if playing time goes down, like this guy is not going to be very happy. And this is going to be a problem. And those problems still may be there. We just haven't figured them out yet.
Right.
But I'm just saying now, going into week 4, the genuine care, the energy level in the gym, the competitiveness level in the gym is much higher than it was a year ago at this time. And I hope that, look, we'll see if it leads to a better season and more wins and all the stuff that everybody wants. But at least as of now, that is what I am encouraged by most, because the teams that I have been around that have had the most success have this type of feel in terms of just really enjoying being around one another. And when I say that, it automatically people be like, oh, it must mean the team last year did not like each other. The team last year, they liked each other, but they didn't necessarily like playing with everybody. And I
Right.
think and I think there is a difference. You can like your teammates as individuals, but then when it comes to playing with one another, it was very cliquish a year ago. I think that was clear, and it showed, especially early on in the season for SIU. Does not have that feeling this year, and and to me, that is the credit that Scott Nagy and his staff deserve. Of they've gone out, and I believe they have gotten, no doubt, better talent. But it's the piece you have asked me about in my experience, where I believe, and I always bring him up to you, but it's why I marvel at Josh Schertz and what he does. He is a tremendous basketball mind, one of the best basketball minds I've ever been around. But it's also understanding the piece of how is this guy going to fit in terms of our culture. And Coach Nagy's done a tremendous job, at least as of now on June 23rd. This team has truly loved being around one another, and the feeling in the gym is night and day difference than a year ago. And it's still, I know probably coaches may not appreciate to an extent, and even some administrators, but like it's still sloppy basketball, but it's better sloppy basketball than what it was a year ago in June. So like it's nowhere near. Let's not roll that out and let's start playing
Yep.
games today. There's still time needed, but it is a completely different feel in the gym this summer than it was last summer.
2 quick hitters. Isaiah Stafford, health. How does he look?
Looks really good. He has only been held out of one practice to this point. I think it was just more precaution. He has told me he's still trying to get his legs back a bit, but you can see within practices those spurts of, yep, we've seen that before.
Yeah.
And what I like about him, and this may not be and I know when you'll understand it, and when people say it, they'll be like, whoa, this is a major comparison, and understand that my sample size here at Southern is just 3 years. But just in terms, and I am just comparing of the person, how they approach practice, how they carry themselves throughout the day. And I was actually talking to Riley Hoystad, our trainer, about this last week, and he agreed with me, and I agreed with him too. He really reminds us a lot of Xavier Johnson and how he carries himself day to day. And just you can see the experience factor, kind of a calm demeanor guy, not going to be the loudest dude in the gym. But man, when it comes to competition on the floor, that dude's going to ball out and he's going to give everything he can. All the stretches he does before practice, takes his body and everything really seriously. That's kind of the comparison that a lot of us internally have seen just in terms of how he carries himself day to day. And we obviously have seen what Isaiah can do when he's completely healthy on the floor.
And lastly, the Aligbe brothers reunited. Rollins and now Prince there as well. What is the addition of Prince done here to the Salukis?
Well, and Prince said in his interview with me over a week ago, what he has enjoyed most is his best year of basketball that he claims is his best year of basketball was back when they were in prep school and before they got to college was when him and Rollins were on the same team. And he says, Luke, there's just something different about being a leader and really being on a team when you have actually blood on your team in your brother. And the part I've enjoyed the most is when they do individuals and they split the team up. If Rollins is not in the same group of Prince, we'll be watching a drill. I'll be down the floor getting B-roll for our interviews, whatever. And if Prince just has a turnover or something happens in the drill, you'll hear a laugh from a distance. And it's either Prince sitting in the Corona lounge up in the corner watching or courtside. I mean, they give the brotherly love, no doubt, throughout, but it's really neat to see that and the true joy that they both have being able to play with each other. And I think it's going to be I hope it's a benefit to both. I mean, Prince has no doubt played basketball at a high level. He's been in the Power 4 level. He knows what to expect day to day. But it's also neat to see Rollins kind of bring him along and be like, hey, this is what we do here at SIU. This drill, explain it the younger brother to the older brother. But it's a really cool dynamic. They're both tremendous people. And I think that's what I've enjoyed most is not to beat the dead horse either, but it's this group. These are good dudes. And not every team is like this. And that's why I'm enjoying every moment I can get to be around them because they really have been a joy to be around.
He's Luke Martin. He's the voice of the dogs. Appreciate the time as always, sir. Here we go.
Well, I was just going to say, as much as I enjoy this, and you are, I mean, you are just to start my mornings off. I'm not a coffee guy. I'm just more in the valley with Jeff Bidwell. That's what starts me off. But I feel like one of these days, we got to get Kenny and Rodney on with us and just have, a true round table. Now we both know that it'll just be Kenny and Rodney talking the whole time. I mean, we're not going to get words in, but that's the whole point. We can actually take a morning off and just enjoy it. Let's just let Kenny and our dub just hoist it out.
We can definitely, if we can get the two old men to figure out how to use their computers and get logged on, we can, maybe their wives can be there to help them out. We can definitely make that happen. So, appreciate the time, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks, Jeff.
Right, thank you. There's Luke Martin. Oh boy. Yes. You get Kenny and Rod. Look, every time, Kenny and I, we go to Carbondale, those guys come down to Murray and we have our little pregame powwow. Then it's, Luke and I end up turning into Homer Simpson in the bushes. Just like, all right, you guys just talk. We're going to drift away and let those guys tell their old war stories when they get together. So certainly some wars over the years between the Racers and the Salukis that those two were on the sidelines for. All right, let's hit the rest of our headlines of the morning. Kind of a neat deal, I thought, yesterday from people bang on the NCAA, and rightly so in a lot of ways. But I thought this was just kind of a neat deal that they sent Tyler Lundblade just a little plaque to say, hey, buddy, you're the number one 3-point shooter in the country last year. And so, that's something that'll whatever Tyler Lundblade does in his life when he gets the office, that should be on the wall somewhere. It'll be a great conversation piece. And obviously he was awesome last year, 104 3-pointers, and he made 48.1% from the field in records going back to 1987, which was the first year of the 3-point line. So we're approaching 40 years. There have only been 12 players ever on the men's side to make at least 104 threes and make at least 48.1%. And some of the other names on there, you certainly heard of them. Tim Legler, once a great player at LaSalle, played for the Washington Bullets for a lot of years, obviously now on ESPN. Steve Kerr, Steve Alford. There have been some sharpshooters, and Tyler Lumblade is in that company. He's the first player in 9 years to make 48% from three with at least 104 made. And he is the first since the line has moved back to 22 feet and 1 3/4 inches, which that happened back in 2019. And when I look back and I was, the line for so long was 19 feet 9 inches. The line right at the top of the key, and that was it. It was uniform all the way around, and that was why when you see that, in 1987, the first year of the line, Steve Alford shot 53% from three, which are like, holy cow. Obviously, an all-time elite shooter, but shooting from 19.9, and then the next year in 88, Steve Kerr shot 57.3%. 57.3%. There's people that can't shoot 57% on layups, and he shot 57% from three at the 19.9 clip. The line has now moved back 2.5 feet, and Lumblade still goes 48.1%. Just an awesome season, and I expect him to be an absolute first-team guy down there in that Casey Alexander offense at Belmont. We've got more scheduling news to pass along as Valparaiso has, again, we're sort of reverse engineering schedules. We've reached that point of the season. 365 Division I teams putting schedules out. We have all the way up to 7 now. And I think American is the only non-power team that has put out their non-conference schedule. Marquette put out their schedule. That confirms their matchup with Valpo. That'll be December the 2nd. Up in Milwaukee. Of course, as we told you last week, Valpo also playing in an MTE hosted by the University of Kentucky. So they'll be playing in Lexington against UK, and that will also sort of angle Eastern Illinois back up to Valpo. So the Beacons will get a home game there. We told you last week about the commitment, and now we have a signing for Sader Servalis, which I'm sure we're not getting his name right, and I apologize in advance. Hopefully, as soon as he gets to campus, we will have a proper pronunciation for Sader. 6'4" guard out of Canada. Told you last week, all the hoop heads up there in Canada that cover Canadian high school prep basketball are like, this is the best kid from a high school standpoint up in Canada that hadn't been signed. At 6'9" wingspan, should be an all-defensive guy for Valpo, if not this year, in the very near future. So that has been officially handled there for Valpo. Again, we talked with with Luke Martin about the house settlement and who's in, who's out, whatever. We have Valpo. I don't believe Valpo has made an official proclamation that they're out, but everything you have seen since Sader has signed has been, our team is now full, and they have 13 guys on the roster. So not 15, 13 scholarship players. So that's how you know that they are going to be out. So again, just a challenge, and we'll certainly get into that as the summer goes into the season and so on. But boy, the teams that are not opting in, it is. I think as much as anything, you're going to see schools, you're going to see one-hit wonders. You're going to see schools, like, this is not saying that, the Valpos and the Indiana States, and whether it's Evansville, they don't opt in, that they can't have good seasons, 100%. But it just leaves teams vulnerable to be poached at the end of the year. And we really, since the NIL era has happened, everybody in the Valley has been vulnerable. But there's at least some defenses now that you've got from the NIL that then has sort of graduated into the revenue share. You've got a fighting chance where you had no chance before. You got a fighting chance to keep guys, and that's the hard part to just watch. Is these schools, they might be able to get they can recruit, and they can catch some diamonds in the rough that hadn't necessarily developed, and they get their chance, and they have this great year, and it's like you just know it's going to be one shot, one and done on those. So that'll just be a decision these schools have to make. And again, I hate to speak in absolutes about this whole thing, because I think the one thing we absolutely know is everything that is in place today, as much as they want this to be a 10-year situation with this house settlement, is in 2 years, it's going to look different. It's just going to. It may look different in 2 months. It's just still Uh, it's there are no absolutes anymore in college athletics, and that is the absolute. Is there are no absolutes, and that's just something that we're all having to deal with for the time being. We are in recruiting season right now. Men's coaches were on the road last weekend, Friday to Sunday. They'll be on the road again this weekend, Friday to Saturday. Another evaluation period. So your favorite team, all of the recruiting pages and accounts and so on X and wherever you get your information, they're going to be popping with, hey, this kid got an offer from this school and that school, because these coaches are out seeing these kids play, and they're trying to get on them early here. So it's sort of an exciting time for let me keep an eye on that kid now and see how he progresses. And hey, our my favorite team offered him, and then 12 other schools offered him. So now we're already in a fight for the next year until the kid's going to commit. On the women's side, they had their last evaluation period. It was June 12th to the 14th. So that was last weekend. They have finished, and now they are in a dead period for a month until July 11th is when they'll get back out on the road for the next evaluation period, July 11th through the 14th. So uh, that's sort of the recruiting update. But again, mostly just keep an eye out. Your teams are going to be offering kids this week, and everybody can go do their own YouTube deep dives to figure out who it is they want their coaches to go chase down. While it may be a dead period on the women's side, we did get a commitment at Murray State, as they have gotten a commitment from Katie Reed. She is a 6'1" wing out of Washington, Indiana. 6'2" wing, excuse me. Don't mean to shortchange her there. 6'2" wing out of Washington, Indiana. Averaged 15.7 rebounds last season as a junior in high school. Also shot 41% from the three-point line. She had other offers from within the Valley, from Belmont, Bradley, Evansville, and Illinois State. And that is now 4 commitments in the class of 2026 for Rochelle Turner at Murray. And the thing that has stood out to me about that recruiting class right now is just the size. And when you look at their heights, 3 out of those 4 kids, the first number in their height is a 6. And for, Katie Reed to be at 6'2", Sophie Terry at 6'1", Alice Magnanini from Australia, she's 6'1", 6'2". They have gotten a Mary Grant, another guard. She's 5'8". You got, not everybody can be 6 foot, but that has been the evolution from the transfer from the Ohio Valley Conference to the Missouri Valley Conference. And that was the thing last year. Coach Turner said, this is the first year we have recruited for the Missouri Valley, and this is our team with these kids. And in the end, most of those kids didn't play last year. Some didn't play. Cam Hoover was injured. Jada Cook did play limited minutes last year. Brax Baker played a little bit more, but for the most part, it was still, they were leaning on the seniors. So we haven't really seen a Murray State women's team play with a recruiting, really a foundational recruiting base that isn't with kids from the Ohio Valley Conference recruiting time window. And they went and won the thing last year. So certainly if you're looking for optimism from the racer side of things, not bad so far. And 4 commitments are now in the books for Rochelle Turner at Murray State for 2026. I thought this was awesome. Our friend Paul Oren at the Victory Bell posting this over the weekend. Autumn Dibb she is an incoming freshman. She has signed to play with Courtney Boyd at Valpo as Boyd's putting her first team together. And over the weekend, Dibb plays for Muskego High School, and high school still running along up in Wisconsin. She has not gotten to campus yet. And in Wisconsin, soccer is a spring sport. I know here in Kentucky, it is a fall sport. In Wisconsin, it is a spring sport. And Dibb was playing in the state championship game with her high school teammates as they went on to win their 4th straight state championship. And the entire Valpo women's program drove 2.5 hours from Valpo to Milwaukee to go support their new teammate that most of them have probably not met in Autumn Dibb, and rooted her on. And Dibb, posted online after. She's like, that is the best surprise I've ever gotten. And when you are Courtney Boyd and you are trying to build a culture and you're trying to build relationships And when we had her on a couple of months ago, she said she is a relationship coach, and she wants to build those to have your program hop on hop in the cars, the van, whatever, drive 2.5 hours up into Milwaukee and go cheer on a teammate that many of these kids have never laid eyes on. Is awesome. And if you don't think Autumn Dale will run through every possible wall for her teammates moving on, you're nuts. That was awesome, and I thought that was a really cool deal from Coach Boyd and the team there up at Valparaiso. One late piece of news that we just got before we went on the air here this morning: Indiana State's men's program has announced the signing of Hunter Harding. And Indiana State got a whole lot bigger this morning as they have signed 7-foot Hunter Harding, who has spent the last 2 years playing at Central Michigan. And if that name sounds familiar, he is the brother of Marcus Harding, who previously transferred from Central Michigan to Indiana State. So did not play a ton, played 29 games over the last 2 years, only averaged about 2.5 points a game. But I'm just a firm believer that there are not 7'1" dudes, 7-foot, 7'1" dudes walking around. And if you've got an opportunity to get one and try to develop it, I think you're going to roll the dice on it. And so, and especially with the familiarity, I'm sure his brother, co-signed that, like, look, he can go. And so you've got some twin towers now with the Harding boys, Marcus at 6'9", 10, whatever he is. And then an even larger young man in Hunter Harding. That is some size. So something else for Valley schools to continue to deal with as the size. I mean, this league just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Bradley just feels like at this point they're growing 7-footers on trees or wherever they may find them, and they bring them in. Murray State's brought some 7-footers in this year. Now Indiana State's got some, and I'm sure we could roll right through the whole conference and find them all over the place. It is a big boy league, and you need some size to be able to keep up with the Joneses. And Indiana State's Matthew Graves getting one today with the signing of Hunter Harding. All right, that does it. A little longer show today, but I had a good talk with Luke Martin. Hopefully that was educational, a little bit on some house settlement stuff, and also getting a peek at that Saluki roster as we roll along here toward the end of June. July almost here. Bradley head coach Kate Popovic-Goss will be with us on Wednesday as she gets ready. I believe this is now year 4 of her tenure there at Bradley, and it has been a ascension every year, a little bit better. And they've knocking on the door of kicking their way into that top half of the league. So we'll talk with her coming up on Wednesday, as we told you a couple weeks ago. Also now recently announcing to the world and her team an expectant mother. So we will we'll talk about that just a little bit, because that's a pretty neat deal. And I thought it was neat. I really want to find all right, what was the plan telling your kids? Because that was the reaction from her players was pretty awesome. So we'll talk with the Coach Pop coming up on Wednesday. If you haven't done so yet, please head to YouTube and search out Morning in the Valley. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Let us know you're there, and we appreciate all your support. Here every day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 a.m. We'll be here with you through the off season, and we'll start picking up the pace a little more often than that once we get into the season. That does it for this morning. We will see you coming up on Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. right here on Morning in the Valley.